Perek Aleph, Mishnah Daled. The previous Mishnah mentioned two rabbinic decrees that apply on Shabbos. Those were that, first of all, a person may not delouse his garments by the light of an oil lamp on Shabbos, and secondly, the person may not read by the light of an oil lamp on Shabbos. The reason for both of these decrees is the concern that as he's engrossed in the delousing or reading, the light might flicker, might start going out, so he might forget himself and tilt the lamp for the oil to collect to make the flame burn brighter, which of course would be a Shabbos violation of the Malacha of Havara. This Mishnah remarks, it tells us some of the history, the background of those two rabbinic decrees, that ve'ilu min halacha she'amru ba'aliyas Chananya ben Chizkiya ben Gurion k'she'alu levakro. These two pieces of legislation were passed in an episode when many of the great rabbinic scholars of the day, many from the school of Shammai, many from the school of Hillel, came to visit the great sage Chananya, son of Chizkiya ben Gurion, who had essentially holed himself up in an attic to write a commentary on Sefer Yechezkel, a sefer that had so many difficult questions, things that seemed to contradict the Torah, that the Rabbanim were considering a ban on Sefer Yechezkel, to put it away, to say nobody could read this because it raises too many questions. And so Chananya ben Chizkiya ben Gurion resolved to reconcile all these issues, locked himself in an attic, and sat there to write a brilliant commentary on Sefer Yechezkel, answering all the questions and restoring Sefer Yechezkel to its prominent place as one of the Sifrei Tanakh. At one point, he was visited by many of the great sages, many from Beis Shammai, many from Beis Hillel, and at that time, Nimnu v'rabu Beis Shammai al Beis Hillel, u'shmona asar dvarim gozru bo bayom. Beis Shammai was able to amass a majority over the sages from Beis Hillel. As a result, they were able to ram through a whole bunch of legislation, 18 rabbinic decrees. Of course, normally we paskin like Beis Hillel, but because that day Beis Shammai numbered in the majority, they were able to get these 18 pieces of rabbinic legislation passed. The Gemara in Shabbos enumerates them, discusses them at length. Many of them have to do with complicated laws of Tumah. Two of the 18 were the halachas stated in the previous Mishnah. The number one may not delouse his clothing by the light of an oil lamp on Shabbos. Number two, one may not read by the light of an oil lamp on Shabbos. In both cases, lest he adjust the oil lamp and thereby violate a malacha of havara, of kindling a flame on Shabbos. Perek Aleph, Mishnah Hey. The pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim indicates that included the obligation to rest from malacha on Shabbos is Laman yanuach shorecha v'chamorecha, that your ox and donkey, your animal, should also rest from malacha on Shabbos, and thus it would be forbidden on Shabbos for a person to, for example, allow his animal to transport something. If it has some kind of a load, to transport that into the Rishus Harabim, it would be a violation of the mitzvah of Shvisas Behemos, that would not have his animals perform malacha on Shabbos. This Mishnah considers the question of whether the prohibition would extend to even one's inanimate possessions. Must one make sure that even his things, his inanimate objects, are not performing malacha on Shabbos? And one could quickly see how the ramifications of this are quite significant. So we begin in Beis Shammai, the Academy of Shammai said that the halachis ein shorin diyo, we not soak the ingredients that make ink, v'samemanim v'charshinim, or the ingredients of a dye, or a vetch, a kind of bean that's used as animal feed. We may not to leave any of these things to soak in a bowl of water, even if he sets it up before Shabbos, unless there will be enough time for this soaking process to be complete while it's still day before Shabbos begins. For otherwise, if the soaking process continues into Shabbos, this will be a violation on the owner's part, specifically as the ingredients soak in the water, it forms a big mass. Therefore, this is prohibited under the malacha of lush or lisha. It's an act of kneading on Shabbos. When one kneads dough, essentially he's taking the flour and the water and combining that into one mass to make the dough. So that's what's being accomplished here as well. Now, of course, he's not doing it directly on Shabbos. His bowl is doing it. Even the bowl isn't really doing it. It's more passive. The things are in the bowl, and and it's just facilitating the Elisha process. Yet, Beis Shammai says this is forbidden. From Beis Shammai's view, there is not only an obligation of Shvisas Behema, but of Shvisas Kalim. We must ensure that even his inanimate possessions are not performing Malacha on Shabbos. However, Beis Hillel Matir. Hillel permits one to leave these things soaking in the bowl from before Shabbos, even if the bowl, so to speak, is going to be kneading on Shabbos. From Beis Hillel's view, there is no obligation of Shvisas Kalim. Yes, the Torah says one's animals must rest from Malacha, but there's no halacha that says that one must make sure that his inanimate possessions, his objects, are not performing Malacha on Shabbos. Now, the Rabbi Bartanura cites the Gemara's question on Beis Shammai that if there's really a halacha that forbids one from allowing his kalim from performing Malacha on Shabbos, then how are we allowed to light candles for Shabbos, allow those to continue to burn on Shabbos, or allow our pots to continue cooking the food on Shabbos? Practices that certainly are not forbidden according to any opinion. The Gemara explains that these activities will be permitted according to Beis Shammai by considering the candles or the pots as hefker. So that would be like a technical way to avoid a violation, that we deem those objects which are essential to have those going into Shabbos as not his property. Nalacha Shvisas Kalim only applies if he is the owner of the property. So that would be the way to circumvent violation of Shvisas Kalim by lighting candles and putting the food up before Shabbos.